Many years ago, I knew of a family friend named Jamal. Jamal was a hardworking man living in a rental duplex that he could barely afford due to the cost of living. Now, one day, Jamal was just about to pull into his driveway when a spider jumped onto his lap, having him accelerate through his house. And due to some missed details in his home and car insurance, he couldn't claim any insurance, leaving him in debt on top of getting kicked out of his house and leaving him with no job because he has no car. Without any family to turn to, Jamal became homeless, living in the lonely, lamentable streets of Logan. For years he had tried to reach out to the government for help, but was always ignored. This was all until stabbed in his sleep by a group of young thugs. Now, if the government took action against poverty, my dear friend Jamal would still be alive, possibly with a house and a job. But everyone's story is different. But the outcome is mostly the same. We need to take matters into our own hands and make some changes. Poverty is defined as being unable to pay for necessities like rent and food. Sadly, this is the case for 13.6% of Australian families. That's 3.24 million people. For teens, every 1 in 6 teenager lives in poverty. 774,000 teenagers without basic needs. Poverty is no laughing matter. For a child, it could be the difference between life and death. Poverty doesn't just affect you physically, it plays at a young Australian's mental health. Suicide is the leading cause of death for young Aussies, with around 380 deaths per year. With the added weight of poverty, it can make it 10 times harder to persevere. Without the right equipment and opportunities at school, it can limit a teenager's future tenfold, making it harder to find a stable job to keep up with the rise of Australia's cost of living. Poverty plays a big role in most Australia's social problems that need to be eliminated at the centre, that of which is poverty. People in poverty are often portrayed as the lowest scum of people, smelly, dirty, and lazy, and most of these assumptions made by the middle and upper class of living. Now, these assumptions were passed down from adults to children, leading to bullying and harassment towards children and teens at schools. This attitude towards these struggling kids makes it exceptionally hard to deal with an already troublesome life. These assumptions keep these kids on the street, keep them unemployed, and keep them in poverty. This all comes back to us as a society not doing anything to change our thinking, change our lives, change each other's lives. People will continue to be ignored as long as we pretend to not notice. Without urgent help from the government and the community, people living in poverty can dramatically decline into a final stages, homelessness. Over 122,000 people must live in drastically dangerous places to survive, moving from street to street, shelter to shelter, rummaging through the bins and scraps to live another day. Around 45,000 of the 122,000 are Australian teens. Instead of coming home to watch TV in their harmless, happy house, they beg for help, a better life, a job. Bringing this back to poverty, if one were to receive the much needed help, they could avoid the brutal, unforgiving jaws of homelessness. How can the government continue to run this country knowing that there are people out there desperate in struggle, desperate for help? It is our responsibility as a nation to help out our fellow Australians living through poverty. We can reach out to charities like the Smith Family, a charity that funds the education of children living under the poverty line, or the Sleep Bus, a temporarily overnight accommodation service. You can also help by pestering the government for more funding for these charities. just stop and think for a minute. And think about how you can positively change someone's life. Because money isn't just the issue here in poverty. It's also the environment one has to live in. So instead of whining when someone asks to borrow a pencil, instead, think of what they could be going through and help each other out. Thank you.